Welcome to Three Things I've Learned with your host, Susan Dolce, where we share the stories that shift our souls. In the next hour, we will dive deep into the soul-shifting magic of stories. Stories of radical transformations, courageous breakthroughs, and life lessons. We're all students in this soul school called life. We don't need to do this alone. Why not share our notes? Three Things I've Learned starts now. Hey everybody, welcome to Three Things I've Learned. I'm Susan Dolce, and I'm really happy to have you here with me today. If you were listening to the show on Transformation Talk Radio, so like online, and you heard my intro, you would have heard me talk about this planet as a soul school. I'd say it's the soul school called life. Because I believe that our being born, incarnating on this particular planet at this moment in time isn't random. You aren't merely the result of one lucky sperm winning the race. I believe, bear with me here for a minute, and every time I bring this subject up, some people look at me sideways, but I believe that prior to our birth, we chose the challenges we would experience, the joys, the accomplishments, and our relationships. And I believe we even chose our parents. Now, as I've said before, some people look at me sideways. I'm sure some of you out there going, there is no way I chose my parents. There's just no way. But I'm asking you to take a little bit of a more cosmic perspective and consider that if what I say is true, what qualities, what experiences, what skill sets did your parents have or lack that made you the person you are today? And I'm going to ask you to stretch just a little bit further. One more question. What if your parents also chose you? What if your incarnation was part of a pre-birth contract between you and your parents? Every time I'll bring it up and people are like, what? Yeah, I know it's a little heady, but I'm asking you to step outside of your 3D reality and consider the truth and the possibility of other dimensions. And I'm certain my guest today can shed a lot more light on why it's important to explore these other dimensions of reality, and especially what it means to our planet's future and future generations. Dr. Betty J. Kovacs earned her doctorate from the University of California, Irvine in comparative literature and theory of symbolic mythic language. She taught literature, writing, symbolic mythic language for 25 years. She served many years as chair and program chair on the board of directors of the Young Society of Claremont in California. And she also sits on the academic advisory board of Forever Family Foundation. She is the author of two amazing books. One, the more recent one, is called The Merchants of Light, The Consciousness That Is Changing the World. And that book won a Nautilus Silver Book Award, and it also won the Scientific and Medical Network 2019 Book Prize. And she also wrote, and this is the book we're going to focus a little bit more on today, The Miracle of Death, There Is Nothing But Life. So I am so honored to welcome Betty to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm very pleased to be here.
And very generously, Betty has offered to give away 5 autographed copies of The Merchants of Light. So if you want to snag one of those, call in. The number's 1-800-930-2819. And Olivia will get your information and we can get those books out to you. Good. So, all right. So much to talk about. Like I've said, I've devoured these books because I first started with Merchants of Light, and then I watched a video and I was like, must read Miracle of Death. Have to read that one first. and if you watch any of her videos after this, or if you have watched any of her videos, I also had to go out and get an I Ching so that I could.
Oh, great. So, that's wonderful.
Yeah. I went all in. So I know all the things. I mean, I know the stories. I know all the things about that. But I think a good place to start would be for you to share the experiences that led to you writing these books. And these were some pretty tragic circumstances.
Yes, that's true. My mother was killed in a car accident in 1990. And then the next year, our only child, Pishti, was in a second car accident. And he was also killed. He was in a trauma center for 13 days, but he died. And then 2 years and 4 months later, my husband Istvan went to his native Hungary to see his family, and he was killed in a third automobile accident. But before Istvan, my husband, died, he and I had incredible experiences with our son's consciousness after he died. And this was so completely important because I don't know how I would have gotten through those experiences had we not had those experiences with him in another dimension of reality. And I think that this is evidence, certainly for me, but I think once you experience it, you know, but I think it is evidence that we're all capable of this. We have everything in us that it takes to access other dimensions of reality. But our culture in the West, from 1700s at least, has cut those roots to our deepest essence. And we have really just focused on developing rational consciousness. And there's nothing but matter, and there is no other dimension to be in contact with, so don't worry about it. And we've all been schooled in this. And there is a pervasive belief, even when we don't want to, we have been brainwashed, you might say, by our own doctrines, our own worldview. And when we do that, then if there's nothing to connect to, we don't try to do it. And as the poet Rilke says, those organs with which we might have received contact have atrophied. And I certainly have felt that in myself. And I think that's true because, and the second book, Merchants of Light, I try to show how these ancient cultures developed a way in which the elders and the children were living in a world in which those other dimensions were known to exist, and the rituals and the whole structure of life was centered around knowing and understanding the laws of nature, living in harmony with those laws, because they are the same laws that operate within our psyche or soul. So that makes a big difference in our ability, to do this. I think our generation is a generation, well, several generations at once. We are learning to how to do this. First of all, we have to have the experiences so that we know ourselves, not because someone told us, we know ourselves that there are other dimensions, and we are learning how to make contact, maintain contact, and help our children to be aware of these other dimensions. So those were the basic experiences, the deaths. But I have to say that before that, I was always looking. I was always trying to find. And I had gone to Peru twice to study with shamans, and it helped me. But I knew there that it couldn't be some shaman or shamaness who would lead me. I had, and that's the very essence of shamanism anyway, to go within and you be your own shaman. And so I was trying very hard, but it's very interesting that it was when our son was killed, not so much with my mother, but it's when our son was killed, that really started opening up for us.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a parent-child bond, and he was quite young.
20 years old.
Yeah. And I have a 20-year-old, so I just can't even imagine.
I know. I couldn't either. If I had imagined, and of course you always fear those things, and I just was like, it would be impossible. I couldn't even imagine how it could be to let him go. And yet, when the time came, there is something in us that can rise to that necessity.
I'd like to, I've got so many questions and they're kind of all over the place, but one of the things I want to talk about is, and you discuss this in Merchants of Light also, is how, as you were saying, everything is brain knowledge now. It's how not the wisdom of the heart. It's how much knowledge can we accumulate and rational thought, and how the church has systematically, I'm going to use the Christian church, has systematically made us doubt our abilities to experience these other dimensions. And because early on, I mean, I had such a hard time believing in the Jesus as the savior, needed to be nailed on a cross to save my, for my sins, that it was so much deeper than that. And if you look at, if you really go in and study, the history of Jesus's genealogy, and you explore the Essenes and all of that has just been squelched. And it's like, they've made us doubt that our abilities to do this and to trust our heart.
This is a great tragedy of the Western world, and it's a tragedy for the Roman Church, and it has permeated many of the branches of Christianity that are both Catholic and Protestant. Some not. Some do encourage that. But it really began, I discovered, in 621 BCE in Judaism. The scholar Margaret Barker has done incredible research to show that the first temple tradition in Judaism was a shaman mystic tradition, which means we went within in order to experience this vast consciousness that we really are. We are all born in this vast divine universal consciousness. But in 621, the Deuteronomist told everyone that there was a higher scripture that they had found in the temple, and that they destroyed that tradition. And the feminine was honored in that tradition because the feminine has always been a symbol for nature, for life, for birth, death, and rebirth, and for the human soul and the eternality of it. She was completely eliminated, and the tree, which was her symbol, from which she always gave the fruit of consciousness freely to others, those trees were burned down, destroyed, and the sacred wisdom literature was destroyed, although there were Jews who took it to Egypt. So then there were many attempts, perhaps, or at least desires, to maintain that first temple tradition, probably among the Essenes. And probably the Essenes were the mystics around the Dead Sea, whose scrolls were found right after World War II. And also the Therapeutae in Alexandria were mystics, Jewish mystics, and they were trying to hold on to this first temple tradition. Now, Margaret Barker tells us that one of the ways they tried to hold on to it was through the Jesus tradition. That, of course, that began in Judaism, and that was to be the rebirth of the shaman mystic tradition, that Jesus was a mystic. He had achieved this vast cosmic consciousness. But unfortunately, when the Roman Church got hold of him, they switched it. They inverted that myth, that symbol of the Christ, into a person who has achieved this, who is this, was born this way, and that we must follow him. And later, also after World War II, the Nag Hammadi texts were found in Upper Egypt, where they had to be buried because the church was going to destroy them. And in the Nag Hammadi text, Jesus says, "I did not come to save you. I came to remind you of who you are. And when you drink from my mouth, you and I are one. And if you will bring forth what is within you, it will save you. That's what will save you. But if you do not bring forth what is within you, it will destroy you." And so here we have this incredible figure, beautiful figure of the Christ that is within all of us, and its own particularity, and that is our life journey to be able to experience and live in this vaster consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, one of the worst things that happened was Constantinople. I mean, when the Christian. Constantine, right? When it became a state religion, and then that was the end of it. It was all about power and control, and not about the teachings. So
that has been really disastrous for us, because they were the one. I mean, this shaman mystic tradition, as I explain in Merchants of Light, was reborn in several Renaissance periods: the High Middle Ages, the Italian, the Rosicrucian, the German Romantic, and it's back today because every awakening is rooted in this tradition. So it's really trying to become known. It's really trying to help us to remember who we are.
Yes, I don't know if the fourth turning is the proper phrase, but we're on the cusp of hopefully maybe we can get it right this time. We could actually get to the other side and not regress.
Yes, it's almost as though we must, because there's so many factors. But what I was going to say too is that during the Rosicrucian period, there was a rebirth of scientists and engineers and mystics and theologians. And when the church destroyed that movement and there was a science society formed, it was only half of what these people had wanted. These people in 1600 really were preparing for an enlightenment, both intellectually, scientifically, and illumination, a visionary, shamanic. And when the church destroyed them, then there was an invisible college of scientists and mystics. They tried to form a society for that, but it was too late, too much destruction. And the Society for the Royal Society for the Study of Science was formed, and it was only material, rational. And so the Enlightenment came. The Enlightenment philosophers in France who said, oh, we're the apex of everything that's come before. Nothing before was worthy, only the rational. And so it's actually the Roman Church's fault that science became a materialistic science. But in the last century, quantum physics made the full circle, and it's going back because now, no, quantum physics tells us there are many dimensions. And so we have a better chance of succeeding this time, I think, for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, I really want to talk more about, that we are sort of on the cusp of where we have to make a change. And as I said in my intro, talking about future generations. But I think this is a good time to take a quick break. You're listening to 3 Things I've Learned. I'm talking with Dr. Betty Kovacs, and we will be right back.
The Truth is Funny, Shift Happens, with monthly guest host Karen Betton. Tune in for powerful conversations about health and wellness. Karen brings unique insights rich with humor and science to her discussions with experts in medicine, movement, psychology, spirituality, and so much more. Don't miss Karen on The Truth is Funny every third Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com. For more information about Karen, visit KarenBetton.com.
Did you know that all of the shows on the Transformation Radio Network are available as podcasts to stream or download?
Really?
Check us out. Go to transformationradio.fm. We have business shows, spiritual shows, energy healing shows, and pretty much everything in between. Something for everyone, guaranteed to inspire, educate, and transform. We are transforming the world, one listener at a time.
Are you feeling the complexity of life? Do you feel that urge to step into something greater? Tune in to Nailed It Radio. Find your simplicity within your complexity with me, life coach Carrie Nail. Tune in each month on TransformationTalkRadio.com to discover what it means to use your full power to be the best version of yourself. Imagine stepping into the energy of saying yes to yourself and knowing you nailed it. For more information about me, visit CarrieNail.com.
Are you ready to put down that drink or drug for good? Are you struggling to maintain your recovery from addictive behaviors? Do you need help with a family member or loved one who's in early recovery or battling addiction? Get the help and guidance you need by arranging a Recovery Recharged phone session with me, Ellen Stewart, Pushy Broad from the Bronx, certified life and recovery coach. Call 1-800-889-1757. Make an appointment today or go to my website, pushybroadfromthebronx.com, and click on the link that says Recovery Recharged. Don't wait. Get the help you need today. This is Ellen Stewart, Pushy Broad from the Bronx, on transformationtalkradio.com.
Has your kindness been used against you? Are you ready to clear the confusion and reconnect with your power? Then it's time to become toxic person proof. Join toxic relationship specialist Sarah K. Ramsey as she gives you the secrets to rebuilding and rebranding your life after a toxic person encounter. It's time to get past the past, get real about the present, and get serious about your future. For more information, visit sarahkramsey.com.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. Today, I'm speaking with Dr. Betty Kovacs. She is the author of 2 books, Merchants of Light and Miracle of Death. She's also an expert on symbolic and mythic language. And before the break, we were talking about kind of how the church or religion, I'll call it out. Okay, let's just say Christianity. I am a Catholic, so I can say this because I'm a Catholic. The Catholic Church messed all this up for everybody, but that we really we stopped trusting our own experience, whether it be visions or dreams. We stopped connecting with our heart. I've watched some of your videos, and I know Merchants of Light, you refer to the heart as the organ of soul. And I belong to a membership thing. I won't drop the name, but it's called Heart Centered. And it's about connecting with your heart and the energy of your heart and your heart field, which we know is enormous.
Yes.
Right. But part of the reason this is so important to me is that we're kind of on the brink of destruction. Like, our world is burning. Our planet is dying. And I believe with all my heart and all my soul that future generations who chose their parents, who chose these channels, they will be coming to fix this. And that's why I, brought up the whole pre-birth contract thing. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read a portion from Miracle of Death where you had I'll read, I probably won't read the whole thing, but you had a vision before Pishti was born. And so when I took my breath away when I read this, so I'm going to read it. Okay, so in your dream, it says, I'm in the country. I enter a small building made of wood. I realize it's my mother's old schoolhouse. No one is there. I enter and go upstairs. It's twilight. Hanging from the ceiling are many Chinese lanterns. All are dark except one that is long and narrow, within which a beautiful glowing light is pulsating. I know that these lanterns are souls, and that the one pulsating with light is the soul that will be born through me. It is not yet time for the others to be born. I see an old man sitting in a rocking chair to the left of the lanterns. He begins to smoke a pipe. The essence of the light in the lantern comes through his pipe, and the smoke creates a large framed painting. I'm going to skip ahead to where you say, I realize this sack symbolizes the work he will do in his life, and I'm Pishti. He comes to a gate that is called the gate of death from the young man's perspective, and the gate of life from my perspective. Which, that alone, when I stopped and I had to think about that, my brain hurt for a second. We always think about death, as like crossing over and, going into another realm, and, it's just a shift in energy or whatever. But how often do we stop to think about the person who's being born is sort of going through a death?
Yes.
That's just that anyway. So, I would like your opinion on how do we connect? I know there are groups out there, there are moms out there that try, the spirit baby communication and all that, but how do we get to this place where we can trust our dreams, where we can trust our visions, even our imaginations. We don't even trust our imaginations. It's just...
No, it's been criticized so much as, oh, that's just imagination. But for the Sufis, it's the mundus imaginalis, and the right brain is the mundus imaginalis in part. And it speaks to us in poetic language. It's a poetic logic. It's not irrational, as we've been told, although sometimes, you get a lot of different symbols and you don't know what to do with it. But then it comes through. Here the dreamer is giving us something very clear, and it's coming from the mundus imaginalis, which is connected to the other world, and it comes through into the heart, or we dream it, or we have a vision of it. But I think we come to trust it as we have more and more experiences. But sometimes it might not speak in symbols. It might be a deep intuition that skips the rational brain, and we don't know how we got from A to B, but it's an intuition, and the Western world has not appreciated that. And it's made fun of that, just women's intuition. No, that is the knowing that comes through this mundus imaginalis, through the heart. And when we have those deep intuitions, we need to at least pay attention to them. But this has been made fun of. The imagination has been made fun of. And so we have to overcome all of that by real effort, I think, and working together in having the experience, and I think writing them down. I kept journals. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't even know that we had these experiences if I didn't write them down. And maybe my son wouldn't have told me certain dreams because at almost 12, he had a dream of his death. And in this dream, actually it was a dream instead of a vision, this first one, when he came through that gate, he had a sack, holding a sack, and I knew that was what he was to achieve in this life. And it wasn't filled. And then he wasn't walking long until he turned directly to the left and went up the mountain, and then went up the left side of the painting, and multicolored lights, gold, and then pure white, and he was gone. And I think that was a communication, but I didn't see it that way. I didn't maintain at least a thought that it might be that, but the symbolic structure was within me. And I think that we experienced, I had 2 years of dreams of Pishti's death before he died, but I looked at them symbolically, and in some I really grieved. But I think I was I could go ahead and live my life as though nothing was going to happen in terms of this great tragedy. But at the same time, the symbols were within me, and they helped me. So it's, I think I honor it so much more now because of my own experience, that I honor this dreamer within me that functions according to the laws of its own nature, of the nature of the soul and the psyche.
So what is the message? So, in one of your videos, you mentioned that, I think it was Istvan who said that he, in one of his visions, he believed that children might be born with like an extra DNA.
This was incredible. He had this incredible vision in which we were all everything at once. Everything in the universe was one, and we were everything at once. And then he saw and felt very strongly about the fact that, seeing what condition we're in on the earth now, that children who were being born are coming in, he said, with a new circle of DNA, but maybe that was symbolic. But he said, I knew that if we can do the work we have come to do, all of us, if we can do our work, they will know, coming in, being born, they will know these things, and they will be able to do their work. And, it was so interesting because years later, I was reading Mary Rodwell, who talks about children who are being born with another ring of DNA, and that's what they called it. And so it's very interesting. And I have a friend who works with different groups of children who do have these incredible gifts. And I think that we all have the gifts that, that all our children are coming in. And if we can be what you were talking about, then we can help them be that. And we will have a world that's very different from this one.
Well, we have to I have to put all my hope in that basket, because I the work that I do, the work that I hope to even do more of, it's not my kids. My kids are adults. It's going to be my grandchildren. It's going to be my great grandchildren. And I am just super passionate about creating an environment, I guess, being the parents in line, and all those kids going, okay, I want that one. I want that one. I want that, like they know what they're doing. But at the same time, the flip side of that is true. So yes, we're going to have these miraculous, children coming in. The first time I heard the phrase, ironically, which I should have heard it, but when you referred to them as change makers in one video, I was like, yes, that's what they are. They are the generations that are going to come in and heal our planet, and heal our soul, heal the heartbeat of this living, breathing organism that we live on. And I just completely forgot what I was going to say. I was like so passionate about that.
Well, I think if we can do our work, they can. A lot is up to us too, Yeah.
Well, so now I remember, but still the opposite is true. I believe that if I believe, which I truly believe with all my heart and soul, that we choose our parents, and there's this contract or whatever, that the challenges in parenting, or family challenges or family dynamics, are also just as important, because that's how they grow and learn and change, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think that as we become more aware of who we are, that, and I love heart math. One can Google it, go to heart math, and there's so many even tools to help us to in breathing and focusing on the heart as we breathe. And there are many, many techniques and I think, we need these ways of synchronizing our heart and breathing from the heart and feeling from the heart. But they have interesting studies that are just phenomenal. Children who were having difficulties, maybe even too aggressive, or difficulties in school, when they went to heart math, the aggression stopped and the grades rose. I mean, I think that, we are really all capable of being who we are. Of course, we're capable of it. We have what we need to be this phenomenal being, but our culture has so reduced the concept of and the feeling of who we are. In Miracle of Death, I said, when I started waking up, I felt like I'd been living in 1 square inch of reality and calling that reality. So I think that our educational system will eventually change, and so that we understand that we scientifically know today that we have many brain components, and that those brain components are connected to the heart, and that the heart gives more information and impulses to the brain than the brain gives to the heart. It is a major component of the heart. As we learn that, we're going to start having different ways of teaching our children, both at home and ourselves and in schools. I think that will change gradually as we learn how to live and activate our entire brain through the heart.
And as you talk about all the different brain components, it's like, you always hear, bad reptilian brain, because it just puts you in fight or flight mode, but all of these, when I got from Merchants of Light, especially, it was like, they all like layer on each other, and they're all equally important. Like we couldn't survive one without the other.
And we couldn't drive a car without the reptilian brain, especially when we become unconscious a little bit. That brain is there.
And that's the thing about not understanding symbols and symbolic language and the subtleties of signs, whether it's numbers or wildlife, all of that we've been told is, that's just silly. That's not true. Like you said, it's all our rational mind. And like I said, it is my life's goal to find a way to integrate all of that again, so that especially in the children, so that they grow up knowing and trusting and believing. Because like when they're born, right, all they know is presence. That's all they know. All they know is how to be present. And that's what they want from you, is to be present.
And they teach us with that.
Yeah.
They teach us because we've forgotten how to do that. And I certainly learned that from my son. We'd go to gardens near here, and he would go, oh, there was a rose. He'd smell it right where he was. He wanted to stay there. I had in my mind, we'll take this route, we'll do this, we'll do that. No, and I started, no, he is where he is. So I think these children come in with, they are able to teach us many things. And it's a kind of reciprocal thing. And I can remember my son, when he was really little, he asked about God. Well, I was still learning. I hoped I had these. And so I said, well, some people think this, some people think that. And he said, Mom, it is. It's just like, why am I giving all this? Like, I know he does exist. And so I think we learned so much. And after he died, I thought, I wish that I had known already the huge potential, if I could have been more positive about the potential. But I think he knew that probably better than I did. You always, after you lose a child or a child dies, you don't really lose them, you think of all the ways you could have parented better, Oh,
yeah.
And mine was, of course, I'd go, was I too lenient? Was I too strict? And then I thought, well, if only I could have been more positive and about potential. But he did know it. But, you think of it, and I think that's one thing we're learning as we go along. And I think if we know who we are, if we really understand this vastness, then we will have that potential knowledge. We have that knowledge, and we can give that foundation for our children.
Yeah, that's my prayer. So we're going to take another quick break, talking with Dr. Betty Kovacs. You're listening to 3 Things I've Learned, and we'll be right back.
Get empowered. Transformation Talk Radio.
Mind to Heart with me, Craig Richardson, carves a pathway from your mind to your heart to activate that innate compass to overcome whatever life sends your way. As an intuitive life coach, I am ready to guide you to an amazing life. Tune in live every second and fourth Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com. For more information about me, visit CraigERichardson.com.
Tune in to The Crooked Climb with Suzanne Taylor King and Denise Stiegel, committed to guiding your journey through the world through mindfulness and personal care. These ladies are rebellious, real, funny, and powerful, helping you realize your full potential while navigating the twists and turns life always brings us. Tune in live every second and fourth Friday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
The vibration of change, that magical place where life shifts from struggle to ease, from stagnation to forward movement, from old ways of being to new ways of becoming. If you're like I am, it can be rather elusive to get there, but when you are in it, you feel it down to your very core, don't you? And it can positively affect everything in your life, from your relationships to your health and well-being, from your career path to your abundance, from the quality of that inner connection to the fullness of your self-expression. On the Christine Upchurch Show, we explore ways to get into that vibration of change with experts in the fields of consciousness, psychology, spirituality, health, healing, and science. Join me, Christine Upchurch, every Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on KKNW AM 1150 and Transformation Talk Radio, and learn new ways to step into your vibration of change.
You've been listening, but are you watching? Tune in to your favorite shows on the Transformation Talk Radio Facebook page. We stream live video podcasts every day.
everybody. We are back. This is Three Things I've Learned. I'm Susan Dolce, and today I'm talking with Dr. Betty Kovacs. She is the author of Merchants of Light and the Miracle of Death, and she's generously giving away 5 autographed copies of Merchants of Light. So if you want one of those, call 1-800-930-2819, and Olivia will get your information, and we can get those out to you. Also, where can people find you on the interwebs?
You know, is it Miracle of Death rather than Merchants of Light that's being given? I don't know. The Kovacs Center is handling that.
Yeah, I was told it was Merchants of Light.
Oh, okay. So, I didn't know. Oh, good. Okay. That's great. And, well, the website is Kamlak. It's KAMLAK.com. Yeah. And that's everything is available there.
And I also think you are offering it. Yeah, there's a free chapter of Merchants of Light too, I think.
Oh yes, that's right. If one wants to sign up for the newsletter, then Kim will send them a chapter from the book. Mm-hmm.
So, since we were talking about the 2 different books, and we've been talking a lot about Miracle of Death today. There is Nothing But Life. If we could briefly spend this last part of our time together talking about death and grief, which has been like a theme of mine for the last several shows. As I mentioned in the break, I lost my mom in November, not to COVID, but she was just a few days short of her 88th birthday. And so many people are dealing with loss this year. There's just, we've had 500,000 in the United States alone die from COVID, not to mention all the other things that just happen. And not just, loss in general, people have lost jobs and that, but I think this book offers such a message of hope for people who have lost loved ones.
Yes, I think since we have been severed from a culture and our own inner roots of our essence, then death is like the end. In fact, that was our worldview until quantum physics. And it is for still many, many people that when we're dead, that's it, it's over. And that is unbearable. We can't deal with that kind of thing. People suffer. Sometimes they suffer for the rest of their lives and they can never bring joy back into their lives. But I think one thing is that knowing that the old worldview is inaccurate and that the quantum view tells us that there are many dimensions and that we are eternal. And what some physicists say it this way, that it is consciousness that creates the world. Consciousness is primary. Now, in the old worldview, they could never figure out what to do with consciousness because we were a fluke and it's just material. And what is this consciousness? It's not quite, they just didn't know what to do with it. It's just an epiphenomenon of the brain. No, quantum physics says this, and it's so important for us to know this. Consciousness is primary. It is. It always is. And it creates the material world. And I think that's a beautiful thing, is that, as one physicist said, that matter is the way spirit looks when it comes into this dimension. And matter is sacred too. In the old worldview, we hadn't thought so, but spirit permeates everything. But when the matter dies or is gone, the consciousness that created it is still present. And certainly I saw that in my dream when I was pregnant with Pishti, is that I knew that he was in the light when he stepped out. And I knew that he was still alive. But of course, I worked with that in a different way since I was pregnant and certainly not wanting to look at things like that. But that's another thing. After he died, I had all of these dreams that I could put together, and the pattern was so clear. But I think that number one, grieving, if we will remember that the old worldview is now inaccurate, consciousness creates, and when matter dissolves, that consciousness that created it is still present. Now, the second thing is, how do we get in contact with it? And I think our generations are learning how to do that. I think we will create a world in which we know how to do that. Just as in our ancient shaman mystic cultures, women would know, they intuitively would know who their child was going to be. They would know so much about that child. So I think we just have to say, we're learning, and we're learning how to make contact with that. But the first thing is we need to know they are still present. They are still present. And if we are having difficulty doing it, there are mediums that can be helpful. Now, I work with Forever Family Foundation, and they certify mediums. And Robert Ginsburg, who, with his wife, Fran Ginsburg, who passed last year, they formed that foundation. And before their daughter died, he thought that mediums were just, if someone had went to a medium, you just had gone round the bend. But he's just put out a book called The Medium Explosion. So if one thinks about maybe you're having difficulty getting in touch with your loved one, his book is very helpful because he talks about the good and the bad and all of these things that you need to know before you do that. But many people have had incredible experiences. And I think just to steep ourselves in this new understanding of who we are and how consciousness is eternal, our ancestors wanted us to know we are immortal, we are divine, and we are creative. It's overcoming the old worldview that's so hard. Now, let's just say that we do get in touch with them. We still have to recreate our lives without them. And that's really difficult. But we are capable of doing it once we know that they're okay. And when Istvan and I had experiences with Pishti after his death, there was such joy in him. And he also wanted us to know, I'm okay. This is it. Don't you remember? Of course, there's no death. There's nothing but life. And we can die to one world and are born into another, die into this one and be born into another. But we are eternal. And I think as we begin to know that, it's easier to deal with the grief. But we still want to be in touch with that consciousness. That is possible. And that's what we're all, I think, working on now.
Yeah. Like there was an interview I did with a grief expert, and I just remember saying I didn't think, because I've never had a doubt that consciousness goes on and that there really isn't. That I never had to struggle with that, but I wasn't prepared for how attached I was to her physical nature, like her body, and because I could, I'm like, okay, I know she's good. I know she's alive. I know she's with me. I know, she still gets to see her grandchildren and all that. But it's just like, you just want that hug, or you just want that.
I know. That is the thing. We love matter. And I think that's why we create in it. We create these material bodies because we can play such wonderful games together, And I remember after Istvan died, I was coming home, and he often would have the garage door open. He was working in the garage. And when I came in, and I just broke down and started crying. And I said, why did you have to go too? And I felt so clearly when he said, I didn't go anywhere. I'm everywhere, nowhere, and right here with you. I didn't go anywhere. I started laughing because it was just so clear that his presence was there. But I still had to get the groceries in and eat dinner alone, And that is, but again, without the people, the physical beingness of people we've loved, we learn a lot. We are sort of forced into different modes of thinking and feeling and being. And again, we learn and change and transform.
I'm just, we're coming up at the top of the hour, but this is my last loaded question. Do you have any advice? So like, you are an expert at, recording your dreams. If I got up to write my dreams, I would never go back to sleep. And then I would be in such poor health from not sleeping. But I have heard about, if you're trying to connect with a loved one who's crossed over, setting an intention before you go to sleep to connect.
Yes, I think that in one could say meditation, or just quiet periods that we have during the day, if you just think on them and talk to them. I mean, I talk to Pishti and Ishtvan a lot, and then if you, yes, an intention that you need something from them. I think it might be limiting if we say, I want this to happen, I want this to appear, or, that might be restricting them. I think they have to learn perhaps how to do things from the other side too. But you could just let them know that you're waiting, your intention is, and when you go to bed, have that intention. And if you just have a notepad by the bed, just put a few things, like a few words, and then you'll go back to sleep, hopefully. And then when you get up, then sit down and write about it. And what I certainly discovered is that as you write, well, I'm using as though I'm with a pen. I would put it on the computer now, but as you do that, however you record it, you begin to experience other things. You begin to see connections, and that also you begin to feel that closeness. But yes, many things occurred in dreams, and I think I didn't really have a habit of jotting down something because I remembered it in those days. Now I think it's more important for me to have that notepad because I'll get up, I'll know the dream, and then when I wake up, I think, now what was that? But if I had one word or two, it would help me.
Yeah, I'm definitely bad at that. I have just as a funny side story, one of my dear friends, she had this very, very elaborate dream, and she got up to write it all down. I was one of the people included. It was like an epic dream. And when she told me this story, I was like, how long did that take you? Like, I would have been up for 2 hours. I never would have gotten back to sleep trying to because so much symbolism in this dream. And I was I would have been sitting there trying to figure it all out. Anyway, I'm still sort of waiting. Trying to connect with my mom. And
being observant is important.
Yeah.
I have a medium friend, and she said, there's so many things happen that we don't see. And I'm sorry, I interrupted, but I wanted to be sure.
No, it's fine.
It's just, there's so many things that happen, and then we start connecting them,
Yeah. There was one time where it wasn't too long after she had passed. Actually, it was only a day or two, and that was sort of the last instance I have. But I saw her getting out of a car. I was driving through downtown, and her stature, her gait, how she holds herself, how she gets out of the car, what she was wearing. And I was like, okay, that was the closest thing I got. So I'm still waiting. And I do agree. I do think that sometimes, it's like learning a new language when, over there and they've got to figure out the best way to communicate with us. So I'm holding out hope. I've had beautiful visions from other loved ones who have passed. So I know it's possible, and I know it will happen. So it's just holding out hope. So Dr. Kovacs, thank you so much for today. This has been an amazing chat. I have so many other questions. I could have talked for 2 hours. Dr. Betty Kovacs is with the Comlock Center. It's comlock.com, KAMLAK. Is that right?
Yes.
And we've got a few more minutes. If you want Merchants of Light, she's giving away 5 autographed copies of that. And that number is 1-800-930-2819. And just thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I thank you. We could go on a long time. I thank you. I appreciate it so much. And I love what you're doing and all of the thoughts for how we can create a better world for our children.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So we all have a story to tell, and we can live in the story or we can transform the story, and it's your choice. But if you change your story, you can change our world. Thanks for listening, everyone. I'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to 3 Things I've Learned with Susan Dolce. Tune in every first and third Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com for more inspiring stories of radical transformations, courageous breakthroughs, and life lessons. For more information on Susan and the stories that shift our souls, visit her at SusanDolce.com. That's SusanDolci.com. DOLCI. We'll see you next time.
Views expressed on this program are those of the host, guests, and callers, and do not necessarily reflect the views of the station, its management, or advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.